Hi, I'm a UCare Simplifier, which means I make your individual and family plan process nice and simple. Let's go through it, step by step. Step 1, go to minsure.org. Step 2, see if you qualify for a subsidy. Step 3, say, egads! UCare has some of the lowest rate plans in the state with a ton of benefits and a super large network so I can keep my doctor. Well, you don't have to say egads. Just trying to bring it back. UCare, people-powered health plans. Go to minsure.org to enroll today.
10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence has started. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
You have entered Untold Radio AM. And now broadcasting from a secret location, your hosts, Joel Sturgis and Doug Hychek. And welcome to this edition of Untold Radio AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Doug Hychek. How you doing tonight, Doug?
Racing. So I set a new record tonight, didn't I?
You did.
What
you did.
2 seconds?
You were actually late. It was already past 7
No.
when you showed up.
I got Mac time. It was exactly
Mac
59,
time.
and then click call, and bam, it was 2 seconds.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyhow, you were late. But anyhow,
That's a new record.
Won't dwell on that. It was a new record for being late.
Yeah, 2 seconds.
Yeah. So,
Oh my God.
what do you have going on in your life? You were saying something before we came on air for the 2 seconds that we talked.
Well, here's why I was late. Good excuse. The refrigerator decided to start pumping heat versus cold. And literally ruined all of our, hard-earned food. It's not cheap anymore, but everything got wrecked. Everything.
No. Wow, that is really too bad because the price of food, you're right, just because you touched on it there, is going crazy.
It probably took 5 years to collect all the condiments that were in there.
You had condiments from restaurants that aren't even open anymore.
But you buy your A1 and your Heinz 57 and your certain kind of dressing. You know what I mean? You got everything.
Sure.
It's kind of like losing your wallet when you lose.
It's kind of like a time capsule of food, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but a lot of it's still good.
Kinda good.
I mean, so mustard can be 5 years old.
Best Buy on that label means nothing.
Yeah, and don't you hate it when your wife decides to get the big garbage bag and say, hey, I'm going to clean the refrigerator. And all of a sudden you got a 50-pound bag sitting there of stuff that was perfectly good that just because it was Best Buy day.
And just because, a little mold on it never hurt anybody. Especially like cheese. Remember the old days? You just cut the mold off and eat the cheese?
Yeah, of course. You never do cheese.
Bread. I've seen that done before. Where people just cut the bread, mold out the bread.
Yeah.
It's good.
That reminds me of a story a guy told me once. He was up at his hunting shack. And he had been, he came home, but he was drinking. And they stayed up late playing cards. He was quite drunk. So everybody goes to bed. And he's sitting alone in the cabin in the dark. Maybe one little light on. So he gets hungry. So he goes into a box of Twinkies. He unwraps the thing. He's just like thinking, oh, this is great. And he freaking eats one. And he's all happy. He's like, because he's been drinking, right?
Yeah.
Sweets don't taste normal when you've been drinking.
No, they just don't.
So he grabs another one and eats it. No, that one's pretty damn good. And he grabs a third one. And this time he decides to turn a light on.
Oh, no.
And he sees it. And he says, the brightest green you've ever seen.
Oh.
He just had eaten 2 completely moldy Twinkies.
Oh, I bet he never got another cold in his life.
That's as bad as a guy that uses like a water bottle or a pop can for he chews and he spits.
Oh, that is so disgusting.
And then every time I've known it, I don't chew. I've never chewed, but I'll ask him, well, have you ever grabbed the wrong can by accident when you go to the gas station and buy a pop? Because it's usually the one that they. This guy goes. He goes, yeah. One time, I did that and I took a swallow. He said it was so old, it had been up on my dash. It grabbed all of it out of the can, and it was like one big long python. And it went down into his stomach, and it just kept going like a slinky.
Oh,
Slinky
good
action.
Lord.
And I literally almost felt like retching.
I might have lost it right there.
Oh, it's bad.
I mean, it even sounds like he had graphic detail.
I apologize.
With it.
I apologize.
Well,
I wish I could take back that story. Okay. So I do want to talk about something kind of cool.
Okay.
I just discovered this.
Okay.
And the reason I discovered it is because of my son Joshua. Okay. Did you know that you have 30,000 lasers that shoot out of your iPhone, right?
Yeah, basically.
A lot of people know that, but they don't really know it. They know they have facial recognition, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they know that. But they don't know of any other use for it. I found a great use for it today.
What's the use for it?
Okay. But what I wanted to do was just to kind of give a little background about it, because first off, there are 30,000 lasers that shoot out of your iPhone. Okay?
Yep.
And you're thinking, well, how the heck can that be? That many?
I'm looking at it right now on my iPhone going, 30,000 lasers. Where are they shooting from? The screen?
Don't be cheating on me. Just put that damn thing down.
All right.
Okay. Because nobody knows this. So I'm thinking, well, there's got to be a cool use for this. And the new iPhones, the brand new 13s, have LiDAR radar in the back, on the backside. And LiDAR radar is basically similar. It's a bunch of laser beams that shoot out. And then what LiDAR does is it measures the bounce back, how long it takes for that light to bounce back, right into the lens.
Okay, yep.
So it's bouncing.
Right.
It's like bat radar or sonar, but it's using light. Okay, that's LiDAR. And then to make a conventional laser, you have to take conventional light, and then you bounce it against one mirror, and it bounces back to the other mirror that's perpendicular. But there's a phenomena that happens. Eventually, the photons start thinking, oh, hey, you're just like me. Let's get together. And they start kind of lining up, and they keep bouncing, and eventually they ricochet out of there. And that's how you make a laser. It's basically, when I was a kid growing up, in the 60s, my brother was a laser tech guy, and he was doing research on how lasers could be used in computers. This is back in probably 63.
Well, so he was a man ahead of his time.
Oh, God, yeah. And so, and I believe he was working for Sperry Univac at that time. And, but our basement was taken over for quite a while with mirrors and lasers. And these lasers were probably dangerous, but whatever. It explains my problems. But, okay. So that's why I'm really interested and really passionate about lasers and holograms. But, so basically your phone produces 30,000 layers or 30,000 lasers by using quantum technology.
Wow.
Which is really cool because you're thinking, well, how can that be? Okay. So basically what it does is it uses technology, and it's called VCSCL. And basically what it is, hang on, because I can't remember all this crap.
Okay, I'm waiting.
It stands for vertical cavity surface emitting lasers. Vertical cavity surface emitting lasers. Okay, and it also helps your phone focus because it's so instant.
Yeah.
They also call it VCSEL. Like if you're a tech and you're talking to each other, they call it VCSEL technology. And it's basically the same technology that they use to make computer chips.
Okay.
Which is really cool. I mean, this is building to a really cool crescendo here.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is a use that you can start using tonight. And it's so cool. We were doing things today with it that even blew my son's brain. I mean, his head exploded. And we couldn't quit doing what we were doing. Okay. So anyhow, let me get back to this. So what there is, we talked about lasers. It's two mirrors, right? Well, in this VSCSL, there's 2 reflective surfaces, and then they have a thing called the quantum well in between, sandwiched in between those 2 reflective surfaces. And one is more reflective than the other. This is the key to how it works.
Okay.
So it uses a thing called Bragg scattering, which I'm going to talk a little bit after I get done with this, and I'll talk about that really quick. And these are all cool things everybody can look up. Bragg scattering. It's like the coolest technology that was invented in like 1930. Okay. So anyhow, so this light, so little LED is bouncing this light, millions, 30,000 of these, back and forth, but one lens is, or one surface is more reflective. And so it finally escapes, right?
Yeah.
And it's IR laser beams. So this is IR laser. So it's invisible to us. But first off, there's a way everybody can see it themselves. Just grab your own security camera or buy a cheap security camera, or somebody that's got
would any digital camera work? Like if you had another digital camera around? Okay.
Well, it has to be a security camera to see all these 30,000 laser beams.
Gotcha.
And it's really cool looking. I mean, it's like you wouldn't believe every time you open your phone, you're looking into 30,000 lasers that are shooting all over you, mapping every square inch of your body. Everything it hits, it's mapping it. Okay, so, all right. So I've kind of explained sort of how it works. I doubt anybody understood me, but because I barely understand it. But there's a software that you can get to take advantage of that chip. It's a little tiny chip that produces 30,000 IR lasers. Okay. And those laser beams are so IR, they're really invisible. They're at 50 nanometers. So they're a regular like IR camera or LEDs, they're at about 900 nanometers or even a little less. So 1550 is like serious IR. I mean, that's
that is
damn near a radio wave. Okay, so you can get this software, and I'll repeat it a couple of times. It's called Scandy Pro. So it's SCANDY Pro. It's like Sandy, only with a C. Scandy Pro. And it's free. That's the other cool thing. Everybody can get it for free.
Scandy Pro 3D, full color 3D scanner.
Yep.
On your iPhone X.
Okay. All right. So you download that software on your phone. Now you're going to have to give it permission to, grab your camera. Mm-hmm. Just whatever it says, say yeah.
Yeah.
Just yes. And then you can aim it at an object, and you launch it, you hit scan, and you can move this object, your phone slow. I mean 360 around it, or you can just hold it at one angle. And it will do the most amazing detailed scan in color, and then instantly you have a 3D thing of it. Well, what's so cool about it is Michael Waldie, the reason between my son and Michael Waldie, a researcher, who's really amazing, he had somebody send him, named Mike White, a scan that he had done probably maybe with LiDAR. And I'm thinking, but I had already discovered you can do a better job because LiDAR doesn't have the amount of resolution that this does for close-up objects.
Now, isn't LiDAR what they're using to map the dense jungle floor?
Yes, same thing. If you buy a new iPhone X, you have that technology. I mean, it goes a long ways. Those lasers are long distance. I did my whole garage with LiDAR today.
Yeah, and you 3D mapped your entire garage.
And you can map in total darkness.
Well, sure, because the lasers are light.
But you won't get a color scan.
Okay.
What the LiDAR is using is it's combining camera technology with the laser technology.
So what would you like to use this for, Doug?
Well, okay, I'll get to that. So laser or LiDAR scanners, people use it for scan your house and then you can rearrange your furniture.
Okay.
Right?
Yep. Yep.
Dumb stuff like that.
And that's how Amazon does it too.
Amazon?
Because you can scan your house in and then put a piece of furniture in there. Because some type of technology like that.
Well, anyhow, that's what people use LiDAR for generally. You know, it point maps everything, including all the objects and furniture. But it's not that detailed. Okay. But this system, because there's 30,000 lasers for smaller objects, it was like, oh my God, it did every one of Blaine's whiskers. He's got like a short beard, a 1/4 inch. It did every last whisker on his face.
That is amazing that it's got that kind of resolution
and
that ability.
Clear. It's like basically I took my son and froze him right down to everything in his hair and his back. And it's just details inside his ear. I mean, it does everything, but it's really clear and it's scary. I could show you, Joe, because you can see it. But I did put an example on my Facebook page of a footprint that was scanned. And I will tonight, if I can, I'll post my son, the scan I did of my son. And then we did LiDAR of my son, LiDAR scan to try to do a close-up scan. And Blaine said it made him look like a burn victim or something like that, like because it kind of melted his face, and he had like one eye sagging, and it was kind of weird. And
that is cool. I'm reading about the technology as you're talking.
Okay,
man, that is an interesting thing. Now think about what you could do in the woods with that.
Okay, so here, I think I don't even know how to open one of these scans. Hold on here. Okay, so here's my son. And this was the first one I did. Okay, now look at, I don't know. See, hold on. I got to see me because I got to see where the phone is aimed. I swear this Skype different every day. It's different again today. Okay, I'm going to have a problem.
It keeps you guessing.
Can you see Blaine? Can you see Blaine?
I can't even see you, so.
Oh, I don't have my camera on. That's why. Okay, hang on, Joel. It's all coming there. There we go. There. Duh. See, I was in such a hurry and so excited.
Look at that. Yep.
Okay, so now we're going to show you. I'll try to get it so it doesn't blown out because I know it. It's blown out.
Okay, there we go. Yep. No, I see it, though.
So this was the first one I did.
Hey everyone, it's Megan Trainer for Profile by Sanford. We're all working hard to balance our lives these days, and sometimes the toughest part is being the me I want to be. Profile's one-on-one coaching and customized nutrition plans will help you stay on track. Balancing a healthy lifestyle, losing weight, and understanding nutrition isn't easy, but Profile makes it simple. Now you can try 2 weeks of Profile for only $49. Find your plan at profileplan.com. That's profileplan.com.
We've been married 11 years now.
When it came to extending our living space to the outdoors, compromise wasn't an option.
TimberTech presents another deck declaration.
We're Jim and Jody Branley from Coral Gables, Florida, and I wanted a deck that lasts a lifetime.
I wanted something that looks great.
With TimberTech, neither one of us had to compromise. It comes with a 50-year warranty.
Yeah, and it looks amazingly like real wood. It's so beautiful.
So we both win.
Now this time.
TimberTech. Go against the grain.
Of Blaine. Yeah, it's all blown out, Joel. I can see it's blown out.
Yeah, but no, I believe you.
There we go.
There it is. That looks very cool. Interesting.
That's done with something that's not supposed to be done with. That's done with your facial recognition.
Yep.
And you see the detail of that. It's crazy.
Yep.
I mean, it's like...
That is nuts.
So definitely a 3D photo that you can rotate 360 degrees.
Right.
But the reason it's so cool, anybody out there listening to Bigfoot, if they're a Bigfoot researcher, can use them. They're just basically their own camera and this Scandy Pro software to do tracks. And in some way, you can still cast them, you can still take photos, but definitely you're going to want to scan them. I was examining like this track that was sent to me. You can see into it. You can zoom in without damaging the track. You can see the undercuts in the track. It's really cool.
That is cool. That could be a very useful tool.
Go to my, well, maybe you can't, but can you go to my Facebook page?
Sure.
And take a look
can
at
do
that
that.
track. Tell me that isn't crazy.
That sounds very interesting. No, that does sound very cool. I'm loading up my Facebook now. Let's go. And everyone else, come with me to Doug's Facebook page if you can. And take a look at this with me. So I'm going there now. Okay, now I see that you're able to do like a 3D representation of that track where you can move it around and you can look at it from different angles.
That was sent to me. But it was just weird because my son Josh, like, oh my God, it was at least a week and a half ago, actually was on ZooBook. I invited him on ZooBook. And we were all talking, and he knows a lot about light and lasers and Bragg scattering, and he was schooling me. You know, and I know quite a bit about it too, but he knew way more than I did.
Yeah.
And he was actually schooling me, and he's the one that told me that you can basically scan and do this capture scan with your phone. Then I got interested in how it works. And
yeah. That is cool.
I get excited. Well, isn't that cool?
That is very cool. Very cool.
I was up and running within 30 seconds of downloading the software. It's that simple.
Really? So is that's
But the thing, the other
awesome.
cool thing, you can obviously do your children. You can scan them, and then you can even get them 3D printed. Because you can turn it into this as an SSL file. You can convert it, and it can talk to a 3D printer. I think there's places you can send the file, and they'll actually send a painted doll of yourself, really detailed, of you and your wife and your kids.
It's kind of creepy, though.
Yeah, I know it is. But wouldn't that be a great Christmas present?
Well,
give her a Joel doll?
No.
I'd like to have a Joel doll. I could think of all sorts of things to do.
You'd like to poke needles into it.
We could duct tape it to like a crossbow.
Oh, there you go. That's exactly what
we could light it on fire. We could.
You probably would. You would look for different ways to torture me. I could see that.
Dartboards. I'm joking. Anyhow. Oh my God.
Oh gosh.
This is going to take voodoo to a new level, right?
It would. It would take voodoo to a next level. The next level voodoo.
Okay, so then he gave me more things to try. Josh did. And he just is like, this is all like, boosh. I mean, just dealing with all these.
Yeah.
Right out of his brain. He's like, because I was working on the Bigfoot hair experiment with the pink hair, which you can get information on my Facebook page. But he was like, you need to try that too with a polarized filter. And I'm like, okay, good idea.
Full of all sorts of good ideas coming from that guy.
So what time is it? Okay, I got a little time. Let's talk about Bragg scattering because it's so cool. Because it affects all of us every day, and we don't think about it. We don't even know about it. So you know how the sun gets orange?
Okay, but question.
Okay, go ahead.
You have all these lasers hitting you from your iPhone. How healthy could that be?
Well, they're
lasers emit radiation?
Yes, but they're so low level because they're IR lasers.
Okay.
So there should be no harm. But hey, I ain't guaranteeing it.
I'm just saying, if we're being hit with 30,000 lasers.
Yeah, but
lasers
look at them every time they open their iPhone.
And that's how it's taking your picture. And that's how it's to tell if it's you or not.
Yeah, it's 1550 nanometers.
Is by using that LiDAR. And that would mean that all the iPhones that use your picture, your face to unlock itself is using that same technology.
And everybody who's got one of those phones, and they're getting quite old now. I would imagine probably the majority of the people have that. Well, let's say at least half probably have that generation. I don't even know anything about Androids, but I would imagine they have the same technology and the same scanners.
I would imagine they do. Yep. I would imagine they do. Because I'm an iPhone user.
Yep.
And now that I know that, it's really 30,000 lasers hitting me at once?
Yeah.
Mapping me?
Easy. That's crazy. Okay, so now let's talk about Bragg scattering because they use Bragg scattering to produce all these lasers. Basically, if you take a flashlight and aim it through a clear aquarium, that's clear water.
Yeah.
It looks just like clear water hitting the wall then, right? If there's a wall there.
Yeah.
But if you add like flour, some particulate, even if it's white flour, as soon as the light hits all that particulate, you're going to suddenly get an orange light.
Interesting.
Which that's Bragg scattering, because when light hits particulate, it diffuses into this prism.
Okay.
So that's basically Bragg scatterings. And the reason he was telling me this, because I was explaining there's no medulla in Bigfoot hair, and it has a lot of weird properties, because it acts almost like a fiber optic tube that's taking UV light, and it's like it's converting it to IR light, and you can only see the light coming out of the hair using an iPhone, and it's like pink light. So I was explaining this to him, and he got really interested and started sharing everything he knew about.
What does this all mean, Doug? What does this all mean?
It means light is weird, and we don't know anything about it.
Light is weird.
It's like it's alive. I mean, literally, they're using technology they don't even understand. I guarantee you, they do not understand how that's producing those little mini nano laser beams.
So they don't even understand their own technology.
No, actually, they're making computer chips, and even the scientists that are making them say, we don't know why this works, but it works. The MEMS technology, they don't even know. Very interesting. But they know it works. Einstein, he hated quantum technology because he was in the same boat. Because it just, it blew his mind away.
That is true. I'm reading up on it as you're talking. That's crazy stuff.
Yep.
It's nuts. And if you have an iPhone, you can experiment all you want to.
Well,
in fact, it'd be cool if people would post that stuff. Or send us your pictures of what you're taking if you decide to do it.
Yeah,
your scan.
A scan. Probably the best way to send it is just do a video of the other phone. Use your wife's phone and videotape the screen of your scan.
Gotcha. That way it catches the LiDAR.
No. To share it. It's easier to share it.
It's easier
to share. You take a
share
video of the 3D scan, you move it around. Yeah. Okay. But we were talking about Bragg scattering.
Excuse me. We have a guest to talk about too.
I know. We got 4 minutes.
David Weatherly's coming on.
Yes. He's amazing.
Ghosts.
No.
Well, yes, that's partially.
Okay. Give me 25 cryptid. 25% cryptid.
We could do that. We could do that.
That's a good deal.
Because, we didn't have a Halloween. It was brought to my attention by the loyal listeners. What the hell? You guys didn't even have a Halloween show.
We didn't do a special. I know.
and I'm like, I know. And I was sick last week, so, you were stuck with Doug.
Yeah. They were, too. Anyhow, I had my son co-host.
Yeah.
Alex. I picked my shyest son, and I made him co-host.
How'd that turn out for you?
Well, I think it was good. He did a great job.
Did you do 99.9% of the talking?
Well, I don't know.
Sorry, I had to interrupt about the guest tonight for people that might be interested in who we're talking to. That's all.
Okay. Then did you know that microwaves there's a thing called microwave auditory effect?
Did you know that microwaves can blow shit up too?
Oh, I know that. But you can actually, there's a phenomenon known as the microwave hearing effect. They sometimes call it the Frey effect. It consists of human perception of audible clicks or even speech induced by pulsed or modulated radio frequency like microwaves.
Well, that is
so
weird.
Basically, you can get a radio going off in your head.
Yeah, I kind of knew that for a while, but microwaves, they have some weird side effects other than heating food,
Yes, and now with 5G, it's going to get weirder.
Yeah.
They don't know. What is the world going to be like with 5G everywhere? We don't know.
It already is everywhere. They got 5G phones.
But Joel, they're going to have to put repeaters like every 200 feet.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. That is
those
true.
waves, they don't travel far.
Are you a 5G phone user?
Sure.
You are. I've not made the switch yet. I'm still using the 4G.
My hand goes numb. My hand was totally numb the other day. Just numb. Couldn't even feel it.
That's not healthy.
From being, you could tell it was like cooked from the radio waves. Felt cooked.
Doesn't that concern you at all that you're cooking your hand?
Well, yeah, because as I think we talked about before, we have 5G and 4G going on.
Yes.
Because they have to keep the other one going. So we're getting a blast of everything.
Double dose, baby. Double dose.
They're gonna talk about 2021 as the double dose era.
There you go. Double dose of radiation for everybody. Everybody gets a double dose of the G.
Yeah, it hasn't affected me one bit.
No, not one bit. Not one bit. All right, we got to run a break. We come back. We're going to be talking about David Weatherly, everybody. We're going to be talking about ghosts, cryptids, everything else paranormal. Don't go anywhere. Doug and I will be right back, and maybe there'll be a 3D representation of Doug. Who knows? We'll be right back right after this.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know, set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey, girl. School zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
welcome back to Untold Radio AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Doug Hychek. We call him the radioactive man, Doug Hychek. Radioactive man. Because you've been hit with 30,000 lasers. Look at you glow.
Yeah. I tried to aim them through my web camera because I have a feeling you'd see them.
Well, I might have. But
David,
we have a great guest.
Yes. And why don't you introduce David?
Well, having him back for part 2, guys. I'm really excited about this. David Weatherly is a veteran author, paranormal researcher, magician, cryptid researcher, world traveler, and much, much more. David Weatherly, welcome back to Untold Radio AM.
Hey everyone, it's Megan Trainor for Profile by Sanford. We're all working hard to balance our lives these days, and sometimes the toughest part is being the me I want to be. Profile's one-on-one coaching and customized nutrition plans will help you stay on track. Balancing a healthy lifestyle, losing weight, and understanding nutrition isn't easy, but Profile makes it simple. Now you can try 2 weeks of Profile for only $49. Find your plan at profileplan.com. That's profileplan.com. Hey everyone, it's Megan Trainor for Profile by Sanford. We're all working hard to balance our lives these days, and sometimes the toughest part is being the me I want to be. Profile's one-on-one coaching and customized nutrition plans will help you stay on track. Balancing a healthy lifestyle, losing weight, and understanding nutrition isn't easy, but Profile makes it simple. Now you can try 2 weeks of Profile for only $49. Find your plan at profileplan.com. That's profileplan.com.
Gentlemen, great to talk to you again. How you guys doing?
Yeah, good. We've been, like you, just the year is flying by just too dang fast. And we're hoping to squeeze in a little bit more out of this year, but things just keep on getting crazier and crazier as we go. And David, how are things on your end? I would imagine equally as crazy.
Oh yeah, crazy busy as always. When the late September kind of comes in, it just gets really busy for people in my line of work, as you say. And this is the time of year when you get, I've got, oh my gosh, so many projects I'm in the midst of wrapping up and completing, and new ones coming in. And of course, like I said, this is the time of year that everybody wants, you for speaking engagements. And it's also the time of year that you get lots of calls from people who say they have, things that they want you to investigate or check out, ghost reports and so forth. So yeah, it's always interesting this time of year from late September, pretty much through the end of the year. But I love it.
David, aren't you wrapping up a new book?
I am. Yeah, it should be out. Maybe within the week. It is the next installment in the Monsters of America series, and this one is on South Carolina, Palmetto State Monsters.
Ooh,
and got a great Sam Sheeran cover of the Lizard Man.
Yeah, the art that Sam does is like, oh my God. It's so cool.
It's amazing what Sam does. It really is. And that book is going to be dropping when, would you say, David?
Oh, I would estimate it's probably about a week out.
Okay. So it'd be a great Christmas
present. People are kind of chomping at the bit for it. The series has done so well, and this will be, what is this? This will be the 8th state that I've done. And, of course, it always leads to messages of, when are you going to do my state? When the ones I love, when are you going to have all 50 done?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
And that's kind of the goal. I mean, when last time we talked, that's the obviously the long-term lofty goal is to have all 50. But my gosh, it's not like you could turn these things out overnight. It takes time.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, that's for sure. And I'm fortunate in that, I have a great reference library, and of course, over the years, I've researched in every state. So, I have decent contacts, and as the series grows, it's kind of evolving. I've had more and more people coming forward and saying, hey, when you get to this state, I've got this great experience or account. And those are the things I love to hear, the stuff that hasn't turned up anywhere else.
Yeah.
Are you at liberty, David, to share one cool story or something from your new book?
Well, yeah, I can. Let's see. There actually is there's a pretty, I thought it was a pretty intense account because the fellow's a friend of mine. He's a fellow cryptid researcher, and he had an experience that he told me about. I don't believe it's been published anywhere else, but he was, his name is Mike Richburg, and you guys will see him referenced in the South Carolina book. He's South Carolina native and has had a lot of interesting experiences in the state. He had a sighting of what he believes was a Bigfoot when he was really young, and it kind of scared him out of the woods for quite a few years, literally. And he just sort of avoided, the wild. But he was so intrigued by the experience that he eventually kind of circled back around and became a cryptid researcher himself. But the account that kind of blew me away that he told me about was that he was driving, and this was back in the 90s. I'm sorry, I don't recall the exact day right off, but he was driving on a back road in South Carolina. He had two people with him, and they were heading for a camping trip. So he was driving, and the other two were kind of dozing off, and he saw something ahead on the road. He was being really careful because he thought, it was early hours, so visibility is just coming up, and he's seeing objects in the road, and he sees what he says is a flash of white, and he thought that it was perhaps deer. So he starts to slow down because he's thinking he doesn't want to hit a deer. And as he gets closer, he's trying to make sense of this shape that he's seeing. And he told me, he said that when his mind was trying to wrap around what this object was, and he's thinking, is that a dog? Well, no, it's too big to be a dog. And then he's thinking, that's like the size of a horse. And he said that it came to his mind, it's like a horse with a sheet over it or something covering it. And when he finally starts to get up on this thing, he realizes that it's a giant bird that is sitting on top of a deer carcass. And he said that its coloring and sort of the shape of it looked like kind of like an eagle, but it was massive. And he said that this thing opened its wings, and one of their wings reached across the center line of the highway, and the other went off well off the road. So, we're talking about a massive wingspan, and this thing, he said it cycled its wings a few times, and then it lifted off carrying this deer carcass.
Oh my gosh.
And, has he, of course, he's approaching this thing, and, all kinds of things are running through his head. He rolled the window up on the, on the vehicle because he's thinking, I don't know what this thing is going to do. And then, of course, he jostles the two people with him away so they can see this thing too. And they're all just kind of astonished at this sight. And to this day, he really, just can't completely wrap his head around it. But he said, it's essentially what people talk about seeing when they talk about a thunderbird. It's massively large bird that was able to carry a deer carcass away.
Jeez, that's amazing. I mean, that's huge. When you think about how wide a road is, and it's it's filling that road, that void.
Well, it's interesting too. There were a few things he saw that he noticed this part of it, like around the feet. There was a really strange kind of pattern, and he said that later on reflection, he kind of realized that it was probably mud that had dried and sort of caked on and given this strange appearance to the feet. But he said, if the bird was after fresh water, so a creature that size obviously would need quite a bit. It's probably drinking from one of the rivers or something and landing in the mud to do so. But, what an incredible sighting that he had.
Is that your only account that you've heard of a thunderbird, a possible thunderbird sighting, or have you heard others?
Oh, no, I've heard thunderbird sightings from all over the place, of course.
Okay.
There's several in the Arizona book. Alaska, there's quite a few thunderbird sightings. South Carolina, I was kind of surprised. It seems like every state has at least 2 or 3 of these things. And thunderbirds, I think, are one of those very curious things in cryptozoology, because on the surface you would think, well, this is a bit of a stretch, to think that these massive birds have gone undetected just because of, for a variety of reasons. One is their habitat's going to be limited in a different way. They're not going to hide as easy as, for instance, a Bigfoot would in the forest. These things are going to be airborne pretty frequently. And the counter to that is that, okay, if they're out there, assuming that they're real, why aren't there more sightings or more accounts? And then you kind of have the other side, that you have just enough of these sightings to make it, a bit of a head scratcher, and you just kind of shake your head and say, this is a little bit maddening in a way, to think, wow, there's enough of these accounts, and some of them from reputable people, some of them, people that, do have a good description of what they saw. And in Mike's case, we have points of reference, because this thing was on the ground. It was on a carcass, and it wasn't just an airborne sighting. I hear quite a few of these accounts, and the people will say, well, you get to the specifics, and they say that they saw it flying, but things in the air are notoriously difficult to judge their size unless you have points of reference, or unless you're a trained observer. So a lot of these accounts, people will say, well, I saw this bird flying, and I know the wingspan was 20 feet. You hear these crazy numbers and think, okay, well, was there any point of reference? Did it land in a tree? Did it come near the ground? Were there other birds around it or anything? So yeah, it's pretty fascinating when you get down to the accounts and you find the ones that are somewhat convincing because of the witness. And like I said, there's just enough of them that I don't think we can completely dismiss it, but it sure is a puzzle.
It certainly is. And like you said, when something's in the air, it is really hard to tell unless you know what you're doing, how big something is, because there is no point of reference. There's just no way of knowing how big that truly is. But then other times you'll see something in the air and you just know how, massively, like a UFO. When people have talked about UFOs and how massively large they are, because if it gets that large, you can almost use the sun as a point of reference for size. Like a jet, how that looks against the sun, things like that. So yeah, I have heard a couple of people talking about thunderbirds, and especially on a Native American reservation that I know of. And I'd mentioned, well, how do you know how big it is? And the guy said, it was near the clouds. It was one of those days that had a lot of cumulus clouds out there. And he was a pilot for years, so he kind of had an understanding of how things should look against the cloud for size, because he'd have to use that as a reference for when he was flying for other aircraft. And he said it had to have been, in his estimation, it had a 60 to 80 foot wingspan. Wow. And when you think about that, that is just huge.
Yeah.
Well, in the case of the story you relayed, I mean, the guy had the road. The road, it's a great reference.
Yeah, exactly. So that's his point of reference there. And, he had something to actually roughly measure the wingspan by. And that's not a normal bird being able to encompass that much space on the ground.
No.
Yeah,
no, that's pretty big.
It's amazing how quick people go, oh, it was a condor, it was a Steller's eagle, it was always something. People just cannot buy into it, but those sightings go back forever.
Oh yeah, they do. And the thing is, like I was saying a few moments ago, to be fair, it is difficult for the average person to determine the size of something that is airborne. And there are a lot of cases where, some of these particularly large birds are out of their territory. Someone's not used to seeing, for instance, a heron in flight, then, that's a pretty stunning sight. Or even an eagle or a condor, these larger birds. And I think it's easy for people to overestimate the size of what they're seeing. But again, you have these other accounts where, the person's either a trained observer or they do have a point of reference, and it's pretty mind-boggling. They saw this thing land on a rock or, in a tree and spread its wings, and they're seeing this massive size, and there's just no explanation for it. There really isn't. And the whole, the Thunderbird puzzle is even more complex because we have all these other aspects that come in. For instance, there's a lot of Native American lore surrounding Thunderbirds, and a lot of tribes have these legends of these massive birds with various, quote, powers connected to them. And this is one of these situations where, I've talked to tribal elders who will say, no, this is not just a spirit being. It was also a physical being, it was something that lived here or does live here. And then to make it even more complex, you have people who spot these creatures and they describe essentially something that looks like a massive eagle or something similar. And then on the flip side, you have people who say they saw these giant winged creatures and they looked prehistoric. They didn't have feathers. They had leathery wings and a long trailing tail, and these other descriptions that really are right out of the dinosaur ages.
Yeah, like a pterodactyl.
Right.
Kind of description. Yeah.
Well, the scariest part of your story, David, is that whatever it was eating meat.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it wasn't seen eating apples out of the apple orchard.
It's not a vegetarian.
A deer off, which means it could easily grab a human. So that's a little unsettling.
Kind of chilling. And it was funny, Mike was telling me he rolled the window up, and I'm thinking, I don't know how much good that was going to do.
Yeah, right.
But
all the way your car.
Whatever makes you feel better, I guess.
God, that's just. I love hearing stories like that I haven't heard. Everybody knows the Lonsdale, Illinois, I believe. Where the kid got picked up.
Oh yeah.
And carried away, and
that's probably the most famous one.
I did a story on that, and he got lifted off the ground, is what he claims.
Yeah,
another meat eater.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's scary. But I mean, I'm always going back to the missing 411, thinking, God, there's got to be some common explanation. Maybe it's these birds coming down and grabbing people.
Well, you got that potential, and then you got, of course, a lot of people have kind of jumped on the bandwagon and think that it's Sasquatch abducting people, in the national parks. And wow, who knows? I mean, again, there are some famous stories. Of course, we had the Albert Osman account, of him being drugged away by those creatures, and there's some Native American lore that talks about Sasquatch potentially abducting humans, and. Who's to say? This is a really disturbing number of people who go missing in this country every year. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, it's when you start really looking into it, and just start really digging. It is really disturbing and frightening, and how many go missing in national parks. I mean, that is just alarming.
David, did you ever look at the case of the man who really got banged up bad? It's I don't know, 3 years ago, I suppose now. And he claims he was shoved to the ground with such force, broke his nose, broke his eye sockets, broke his ribs. Have you seen that case?
It sounds vaguely familiar.
And he claims he saw something big and, hairy running away.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just cases like that to give you a chill. Anyhow, I think Joel wants to talk about ghosts.
Well, because it is that time of year. It is Halloween season still. I mean, we're only a few days removed from Halloween. And the last time you were on, a lot of listeners and had a lot of questions I happened to after the show. And today's no exception. There's a few questions floating around there. And some of them you don't have to answer. You could say, I plead the fifth. One of them that I get asked about a lot because of who your influences were and who influenced you. Now, did the Warrens influence you at all?
Yeah, in a sense. I mean, because, they were, of course, kind of celebrity ghost hunters, if you want to use that term, pretty early on. And I met the Warrens pretty early. I saw them speak a few times. And in, I guess, I don't know, the early 80s, I think. And, I think that if you were involved in the field that, in this field, you would have been influenced by them back then. So, yes, I will say that I know there's a lot of controversy surrounding the Warrens, and that's just kind of, we'll just leave all that on the side, because what I will say is that, again, they were such an influence because they got so much publicity. I didn't really look to them as, I'm not sure what the term, like as guidepost or as a heavy influence, partially because Ed's approach was very much that of a demonologist. He was very Catholic in his approach, and that just wasn't my approach on these things because of other areas I was studying, with all the different cultural traditions and everything from around the world. I just didn't feel the path to go into a house, waving a crucifix and saying blessings and so forth. So I wasn't really, I certainly read all their material back then and, paid attention to it, but it wasn't that kind of a role model for me.
Gotcha.
I do have a lot of respect for the fact that they were just massive influences and got a lot of people interested and involved.
The second question for you, and I just want to get through these because last time we talked, I was accused of not being quick enough to get some questions in for you. And the second question is, can objects truly be haunted? Or do you think that, what is with that? Because that's all the rage these days. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time I heard about a haunted object, I would be able to easily go, go get a Big Mac. Or, a lot more than that, in fact. What's the deal with this? Do you really buy into that, or do you think it's a lot of just storytelling?
I think there's both. Here's the thing. A lot of people, when they're looking at these questions, not just about ghosts, but about all types of different Fortean phenomena, be it different cryptids or UFOs or whatnot, a lot of people are looking for a singular answer. And I don't think it's that simple, not at all. So, when it comes to objects being haunted, my simple answer is yes, I do believe that is a possibility. I own some objects actually that do very strange things. So I do think that is a reality. I don't think that the world is so overrun with haunted objects that we've got one around every corner, and of course the big thing is dolls. That's the one that grabs everybody's attention, and there's good reason for that actually. In fact, I don't know if we've ever talked about this. I wrote a whole book. It's called Eerie Companions: A History of Haunted Dolls, and it really delves pretty deeply, I think, into the whole phenomena, if you will, of haunted dolls. It starts with the early history of dolls and the fact that they were not created originally as toys. They were used for various purposes, ritual purposes, education in some terms, but often used for magic and ritual purposes. So as the world evolved and dolls became used more and more for different things, they eventually did make their way into a place where they were being used as, sold as toys. Yeah. But there's a lot of things between those 2 points, point A and B. And the thing about dolls is that they are made to resemble humans, sometimes in a very distorted way, but they are made in a fashion to resemble humans. Now, that really creeps some people out. And
it is creepy. Not some people, everybody. Creeps everybody out.
Right. So, it's interesting when you get into sort of the psychological aspects of why people are so disturbed by dolls, because a lot of times it's because they do look human, but they're not quite human. And, there's this whole thing that the human mind has a difficult time with something that looks human but doesn't respond like a human or like a living being. Okay. So we're starting to see more and more of this come into play with the development of AI, artificial intelligence. And what's happening is you've got a segment of people who are greatly disturbed when they're looking into the eyes of something that is made in a living form but doesn't respond as a living being should respond. So if you're interacting with another person and you're looking them in the eye, even if you're not, even if you're just talking to them on the phone, there are certain subtle signals that occur that make you comfortable because you know kind of what to expect. You know they're going to respond. You know there's going to be this fluid communication. That even carries over into animals. If you're talking to your dog or your cat, there are certain interactions that happen. If it's a wild animal that you're seeing, if it's a deer on the road or a squirrel in the yard, there are certain things that happen that make you comfortable because it's a living being. But now, transfer that over to a doll, something that is made in human form and doesn't respond as it should. And as they developed these dolls over the years and gave them more human-like things, like the ones that the eyes open and close or the heads turn, that greatly disturbs people because now we have something that we consciously know is not alive, but it's partially responding or reacting as a living being would, but not completely. So it creates this whole weird social psychological dynamic that disturbs a lot of people. And I think that makes those types of objects much more susceptible to people believing they're haunted, even if they're not, because there's a certain level of disturbance that's going on with interacting with these things. And then you get into the whole theory that, well, if a entity is looking for something to stabilize itself, something to be a vessel for it to hang around, what better object to use than something that looks like a living being?
Very true. Very true. It's a pretty good human analog.
David, do you have a good haunted doll story that's really creepy?
Look at poor Doug's like, man,
preferably
I hate
one
ghosts.
Don't tell me one that a doll ate meat.
The most, of course, everybody considers the most famous haunted doll Annabelle, right? We were talking about the Warrens earlier. But you guys know the whole story about the granddaddy of haunted dolls, right? Robert the doll?
I don't.
Sure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when't you?
So,
spin that yarn.
So Robert the doll, and Doug, if you've never seen Robert, you're going to have to Google and look at a picture of Robert. Robert is a doll that is dressed in a sailor's outfit, and he was a gift for a young boy in Key West named Robert Eugene Otto. So this young boy, the young boy's name was Robert. He was given this doll as a gift, and he promptly gave the doll his name. So he said, the doll is Robert. So from then on, the little boy was known as Eugene, and the doll was named Robert. Now, the story is that there were a lot of disturbances that began to happen in the Otto household when Robert showed up. Dishes would be knocked down and broken, other things would be tossed about. Anything that happened, The parents came to see, exactly what's going on here. And the little boy's automatic response was, Robert did it. It wasn't me. Robert did it. Now, at first, they thought, well, this is, this is just Eugene trying to blame the doll for something he did. But other strange things began to happen. People would hear the sound of little footsteps running around in the room where Robert the doll was when no one else was present in that room. The story got even stranger as it went on because, of course, young Eugene, he grew into adulthood. He left home. He traveled around. He ended up getting married, and his mother got very sick, and Eugene decided to return home to Key West. This is where all this was occurring. He returned home to Key West with his new bride, moved into his old house, and which he inherited after his mother passed, and promptly took up his friendship again with Robert the doll. He gave Robert his own room up in the attic. He had furniture for the doll to sit in, and this reputation about Robert sprang up around the neighborhood. People started talking about hearing strange things in the Otto household. Kids walking home from school started avoiding walking by the Otto household because they said that when they walked down the street past that house, the doll would stand in the window and look down at them. And it greatly disturbed them. So eventually,
Unexpected trouble? CashNet USA can take the stress out of borrowing emergency funds. Our fast, secure application process makes it easy to apply online 24/7. Plus, CashNet USA offers same-day funding if approved before 10:30 a.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday. Additional terms may apply. Visit cashnetusa.com or tap the banner to apply today.
Hey again, UCare Simplifier here. Finding the right health plan can be tricky, but I'm gonna make it really simple. Ready? Here goes. UCare individual and family plans offer some of the lowest rates in the state. And UCare offers a variety of plans to fit your needs, all with 100% covered preventive care. It's really the best value for your money, with savings on gym memberships, healthy groceries, and much more. Make the simple choice. Enroll in a UCare plan on MNsure today at mnsure.org.
Eugene passed away, and his wife couldn't wait to get rid of this doll, Robert the doll. He was donated to a museum in Key West, the Fort East Martello Museum, where he sits in a very large glass case on a rocking chair that is made specifically his size. And a reputation developed around Robert that you better be nice to him or he would curse you. So, purportedly, if you're going to take Robert's picture, you better ask permission and hope that he's okay with you taking his picture, or you'll have very bad luck afterwards. If you come in and you make fun of Robert or you say anything nasty to them, he will equally curse you. Now, this sounds a bit outrageous on the outside. However, the museum gets hundreds of letters written to Robert asking for his forgiveness because a typical letter will say, "I'm so sorry, Robert, I made fun of you when I was in there. And after I left, we got in a car accident. I lost my job. My boyfriend left me." You hear all of these different stories. There's an additional thing with Robert, and I'm only giving you the just the surface level. There's so many stories associated with this doll. But one of my favorites is the fact that after he was in the museum for a little while, the people came to open the museum one morning, and they noticed that in Robert's glass case, where he always sits in his rocking chair, he was indeed sitting there that morning, but there was something new in the case. He was holding a stuffed lion. And of course, the museum workers puzzled over this, and they couldn't figure out how this had happened. Everything had been normal the night before when they shut the museum down. They came in, they disarmed the alarm, walked in, and here's Robert with a doll, Robert the doll with a stuffed animal. So upon making a search of the museum, they figured out that the stuffed lion came from another display case that had some stuffed animals in it. Sometime in the night, that stuffed lion relocated from one sealed glass case to Robert's lap in another sealed glass case. And of course, the automatic assumption was that Robert was tired of of being alone in the case or not having something in there with him. So he went out and got himself a toy. And the automatic response from all the museum workers were, I'm not taking it out of there.
Yeah, right.
He can keep it now. So usually if you look at images of Robert now, you will see him sitting in his rocking chair, and he's holding a nice little stuffed lion that he has with him that he apparently decided to get for himself. And, there's so many stories around this doll. For the longest time, it was believed that he was a gift from a woman who had worked in the Otto household as a maid, and that she was a practitioner of one of the Afro-Caribbean traditions, whether it was voodoo or obeah or one of those, and that she had been fired and was angry. So she had cursed this doll and given it to the boy in order to plague the household. Now, that myth was actually dispelled. And the story was, in some ways, even more interesting because there's a gentleman in Key West, and gosh, I hope I'm getting his name right. I believe it's David Sloan, who did some pretty extensive work, and he was able to trace down the origins of Robert the doll because it's an unusual doll. It's not one that was mass marketed, but he determined that it came from a company in Germany who had made it for a window display. And it's believed that Robert's grandfather, who had traveled to Europe, purchased the doll somehow and brought it back. And the sailor outfit, it's commonly accepted that was one of the little boy Eugene's outfits that he gave to the doll, because it's a very large doll. So,
how do you think it got haunted,
though? Is the story of Robert the doll.
I mean, what do you think prompted? I mean, how do you think Robert ended up getting haunted? Do you think it was the love the boy gave him? Like, well, he was just willing it to come alive, or what do you think happened?
Very possibly. I think that, this kind of gets into the reasons that a doll can become haunted. And, you have on a basic level, you have a few different potential ways that a doll can become haunted. One, it can become the vessel for some type of entity, very often a malicious entity, something that wants to plague a family, or whether you want to call it demonic or you want to use some other term, some type of entity that has taken up residence in a doll. But another way that I think a doll, or indeed, any type of toy or object, can become, quote, haunted is if it becomes imbued with so much energy that to a degree it takes on a life of its own. And I think that, you have to understand, one, we've only scratched the surface of the human energy field and what our potential is as, in terms of utilizing that energy and how it can be utilized. You see traditions all over the world that practice different things like Qigong and Reiki, where energy from, the practitioner is transmitted to another living being for positive results. So if you start thinking about those basics and you think about, let's say, for instance, a doll like Robert, this was an only child's main companion. He gave it his name. He gave it, in a sense, a lot of his energy. It was a living being to him. So, what exactly was instilled in that doll that is still there.
Yeah.
At a basic level, some kind of energy that, we just don't know what exactly it can do and how much it can do. So I think it's a great example of how, something can be kind of co-created into existence.
But it wasn't a mean-spirited doll. I mean, I didn't hear anything mean.
Well,
evil. Or did it?
Troublesome at the least, I guess. But initially had possibly a troubled young boy who was very mischievous and projected a lot of that onto the doll. So you had things like dishes being smashed and things like this, and somehow this whole persona grew up around this doll. You've got these stories about kids who are afraid to walk past the window because the doll glares out the window at them.
Yeah.
And it just kind of goes into the creepy territory. And, eventually it gets to this point where he's reputedly an object that will curse you, if you're not nice to him. So it's strange territory at the very least. And he really is kind of the grandfather of haunted dolls because he predates Annabelle. And he's also, I've heard conflicting information about this, but both myself and my colleague Joshua Warren have heard from people pretty close in with the Chucky franchise that Robert was an influence on the idea of Chucky. So that's kind of where we start seeing this crossover into entertainment. And you look at how often dolls are used in horror movies, they get a reaction.
They do.
They really creep people out.
They are creepy. Dolls are just inherently, like you said earlier, just kind of creepy. They're really, especially those porcelain dolls. They walk in a room, it's staring at you.
Have there been stories of dolls like physically moving, like attacking people or eating Johnsonville hot dogs?
Doug, you really hung up on this meat eating.
Oh, he really is. He is really worried about
garbage out later.
The meat. Well, if you believe half the stuff about Annabelle,
right?
That allegedly was physically attacking people.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good to know.
That was Go ahead, David. I mean,
so there are accounts, here and there that these, dolls can take, physical actions and attack people. And I've heard a lot of stories. The thing is that, of course, there's this constant interplay between what people are putting attention on and what entertainment is giving us, So since the Annabelle franchise has been so successful, of course, more and more haunted dolls have surfaced. You go online and, oh my gosh, you see just hundreds of these things. And, there's one from several years ago that was or is reportedly very malicious, and that's Peggy, the doll. And Peggy was originally owned by a woman in the UK who got this haunted doll. She's a paranormal investigator. She started documenting some of the things happening with this doll. She was doing a live feed and putting this streaming video online. And there are people who claim that they had heart attacks from watching Peggy and from viewing what this doll was doing or trying to do. And in fact, the doll is now owned by Zach Bagans. It's in his museum in Las Vegas. And I was there for the opening of Zach's museum, and it was really interesting to me because he has Peggy in a separate room, and the museum, they have tour guides that take people through in groups, and they say they get to this room, and they say they tell the story of Peggy, a brief version of it, and they say anyone that wants to go in can go in now, but if you don't feel comfortable, you can stay out here, because the story is you're not supposed to look this doll in the eyes or something fatal will happen, or something disturbing will happen.
Yeah.
And, the group that I was standing there with, the only ones who went in the room were my daughter and I. The rest of them all stayed outside. And, it really says something, I think, in terms of how much people put into these stories.
Did you abide by the rules, David?
I went inside and to see what would happen and to see if Peggy would do anything, and nothing happened. So,
yeah. Did you look her in the eyes? Though?
I looked at Peggy. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, you gotta. You can't go in there and not look her in the eyes. Come on, you gotta do it, Doug. You'd do it, right, Doug?
Sure.
Gotta try it.
But I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of dolls, and
no.
I know a lot of people are. I mean, that's one of the one of the most widespread phobias, and it extends to. It's not just dolls, but it's also, it can encompass mannequins, some statues. Some people are afraid of statues, so these things that are in human form but aren't completely human. The one, of course, that gets a lot of people the most is ventriloquist dolls.
Yeah.
Because, here's a doll that can, actually, that it moves some, and, people can animate it. So, that kind of takes the fear level up a few notches for people.
Well, because it's that unnatural demeanor. You don't expect it. It doesn't look quite right. We can pick it out.
Right.
Our brains are hardwired to pick out us. Things are natural, faces. And when there's something that's just not right, we just, inside of us, we want to avoid it because we don't know the danger that's associated with it.
Right. And the thing is that on a subconscious level, this kind of thing, ventriloquism is a good example. Once again, we're looking at something that has roots in the occult, ritual and magic. And, there was a time when ventriloquists, they just... they wouldn't do that in public because it was considered magic. It was considered, dangerous. I mean, we go all the way back to the early Greeks who used it in a ritual fashion. It was, it kind of evolved from there, but it went through a lot of different phases, and of course, entertainers started utilizing it to try to capitalize, and that wasn't always met with success. Sometimes they were banned, they were labeled as witches or heretics or whatever because they had this magical ability. Well, that's not natural. That's got to be, evil. So, all of these things, I think on a subconscious level, when someone doesn't completely understand something, then it has a certain aura that is very mystical, and for some people disturbing, for some people intriguing.
Very true.
What's the term for fear of dolls?
It's pedophobia.
Pedophobia.
Pedophobia, yeah. Is the well? Let's see. That's the.
A gift of fine jewelry holds so much meaning. It can really mark a moment. That's why I love being a jewelry consultant at Shane Company. I get so much joy helping our customers find something special for the people they love. Like the customer in the military who wanted to propose to his girlfriend before he was deployed. We rushed to get the engagement ring ready for him, and he was overwhelmed with gratitude. Or the customer who survived cancer. The whole time she was in treatment, her grown daughter was by her side, taking care of her. She told us her daughter had a heart of gold, and to show her appreciation, she gave her a 14-karat gold heart necklace. Another customer came in to get his wife a gift to celebrate their growing family. They were adopting a baby. He picked out a beautiful necklace with the child's birthstone. It's precious moments like these that make my job so meaningful.
Now you have a friend in the jewelry business. Shane Company and ShaneCo.com.
Oh, is that right? There's like 4 or 5 terms, and they're all very close. Pedophobia maybe is a fear of children.
Yeah, here it is. Yep. PDI or pediophobia?
Pediophobia.
Pediophobia.
Pediophobia, yeah.
Well, I'm the poster child, so here you go.
Dolls don't really, I mean, I don't necessarily go out and want to go find a haunted doll, but I also don't avoid them either. I've been in the presence of a couple of them, and quite honestly, I think a lot of that is preconceived notions of what you're near to. You know, that's put in your head it's haunted, so you're automatically going to be having those feelings of this is strange too. So, I mean, you know, how much of that is preconceived notions going into it, and others are true phenomena? Who knows?
Sure. Well, it's, you know, there was a lot of stuff written about this in the early 1900s, and then there was much later on, at the beginning stages of AI, there was a Japanese scientist who looked at these ideas, and they all come back to this concept called the uncanny valley, which is this, what I was talking about earlier, this idea that, you know, something is sort of in that uneasy middle ground between being living and conscious, but yet not being, you know, something that's unnatural. So it kind of relates to all these questions that people are just starting to look at now with, like I said, artificial intelligence, you know, and how you look at some of these things that are being developed in Asia, these robots with human-like movements and voices, and, you know, we're going to get into questions of when is something considered alive? You know, when is it a living being? And when is it just an object or a machine?
Yeah. No, you're right. And I find the animated AI dolls to be super creepy. Just because of that. And some of them, how far artificial intelligence coming, it's kind of a slippery slope. At what point do they become self-aware?
Yeah,
and then you know what happens then? We got Arnold Schwarzenegger running around killing people.
Right, yeah.
I mean, you know that's what I'm more worried about, is the rise of Skynet.
Right.
You can have your haunted dolls. I'm more worried about AI.
Yeah, I think that's the bigger threat, you know.
Right. Well, David, you know, being it's still the Halloween season, what's the most haunted location or haunted house you've ever been in, and that you're like, oh my God, this place is flipping haunted?
That would, you know, you ask me different days, you'd probably get different answers, because I've been in a lot of them. But
like, what's your top 5 list? If you had to compile top 5 list.
Yeah, that would be tough too. I tell you, you know, Poveglia is a haunted island off the coast of Italy. I've been there. It's extremely haunted. You want a story though? It would have to be probably a place called Revenant Acres in Indiana, and I'm asked about this place a lot because it's a very intense location. It's actually doesn't even exist anymore. It ended up being torn down. But Revenant Acres was a farmhouse built in 1901. And, you know, to see this place, of course, I have a lot of pictures of it. You can probably Google and find pictures. It looks like a haunted house movie house. I mean, the front of this thing, you know, 1901, it was, the very front of it was 2-story, but there's only a single room upstairs. The back of the house kind of extends out a single level, and, you know, old wooden, decrepit looking place, lots of crazy stories. There was a group of ghost hunters, some of whom were law enforcement, who used to run the location for the owners. And they would let teams come in some and investigate the place. And I was in there on several different occasions. But one of the craziest experiences I've ever had. I was bitten by something unseen in that location. Wow. And the story is this. I was in with a small team. There were just 3 of us on, when this incident happened, there were only 2 of us in the house. And there's very little furniture in this house. However, in the front room downstairs, there was an old piano. And this piano had a small bench in front of it, set there in the room right by the steps that led up to the second floor room. And this piano, purportedly there was a lot of activity right in this little area where the piano was and where the flight of steps was. So investigating that night, we started using a number of different devices to try to get communication. We tried EVPs and tried different things. And we had something that really seemed, whatever was responding seemed like it was being a real smart aleck. So we decided to try an experiment. And I told the other guy, I said, look, just stay in the back here and try a ghost box and see what kind of responses you can get. I'm going to go into the front room and I'm going to ask questions and see if it can, whatever this is, see if it can respond correctly. So he was in another room where he didn't have a view of what I was doing. I sat down on the piano bench and I started asking questions. And, there's a few different things you can try, to see if you are dealing with something that seems to be conscious. You can hold up, fingers and say, okay, how many fingers am I holding up?
Yeah.
So I tried that. Now I was straddling this bench. And I asked this question. I said, how many fingers am I holding up? And a voice came over very quickly and answered, and it was the wrong answer. It answered a number, but it wasn't the right number. And, I said wrong. And saying that apparently really aggravated this thing. And what happened in that moment was that it felt like a person, a small person, whether a larger child or a small woman, it felt like a person of that size was suddenly crawling under that piano bench and stood up. So in other words, I'm straddling the bench and suddenly something from underneath it pushes up as if it's trying to pitch me off that bench and to the side. And when this happened, I felt this pressure. I felt something coming up. So I jumped up and the bench went flying across the room. And, of course, I was standing upright. It didn't knock me over. And it was all this profanity coming out of the ghost box and so forth. And, it was a really strange situation. And I had felt the pressure of this thing under the bench and against my legs. But I didn't realize until I got home later that night and got out of the shower and my wife basically says, what is that? And on the inside of my left leg, just above the knee, was a bite mark. And it was, I took pictures of it. It was very clear, very defined. And I mean, you could see the teeth. So it left this huge bite mark, and it's, it was something like I said, I had felt the pressure against my leg when the bench flipped like that, but didn't realize that that's what had happened in that moment. But of course, the ghost box at the time was, as I said, spewing all this profanity and saying it was going to get me and do this and do that. So. Something was very angered, at the whole scenario. And
did it look human? The bite?
Oh yeah, It was a human mouth. It was the shape of a human mouth. You could see the teeth and everything. So
like an
it was
adult.
very, very defined.
Was it an adult or a baby?
No, it wasn't a baby. It looked like it would be, either a kid or maybe a small woman. And there's a lot of different stories about things happening in that house. It was a very curious place. The guys who used to run the location had a video up for the longest time, may still be up online. They had a video up of this young man getting possessed in the location, and they filmed this thing in night vision. It was during an investigation. I think the guy was maybe 20 years old or so, and he does some very strange things. He contorts his body in a very odd way. He got up in the face of this one very large guy who was a cop, who was just sitting there trying to figure out what was going on, and this young kid is spewing all this stuff that doesn't even sound like a known language. And the belief was that he had become possessed by something in that house, and they ended up having to take him outside, physically get him outside and get him out in the grass away from the house. And, he finally kind of came back to his senses, but didn't really remember what had happened, and stood there in the yard and said that he heard something at the upstairs window calling him back into the house. So there were so many weird stories associated with this place. And it's very curious because, some people would go in and just not get a whole lot of evidence, and other people would go in and just have crazy, intense experiences. And, the occasions that I investigated, I mean, there's a bunch of different times, but a lot of different intense things happened during those investigations. It was, I think it was an extremely haunted place. There was very little known about the history of the house. Like I said, they knew it was built in 1901, but beyond that, they had nothing. The guys who had tried to do a lot of research said that for the longest time, it was apparently kind of a flop house. People were doing drugs in there, and it was abandoned for a long time. And the only reason it was standing there was that it's on a huge piece of farmland, and the owners just didn't care anything about the house. They worked the farm, but left the house there. And when the whole paranormal thing kind of came along, they started letting people investigate. But then for some strange reason, whatever happened, they decided, this is not going to happen anymore. And they stopped letting people investigate. And then they tore it down, just with no explanation or anything. So they razed it to the ground.
God, do you think it's for the better that they got rid of the house?
Honestly, no, because I think that place is, a place like that, if someone would put in enough time and energy, I mean, that would be essentially a paranormal laboratory. Someone take the time and really investigate it on a regular basis. I mean, it probably should have been a place that was wired full of cameras and,
under surveillance.
Just to see what was going to happen. And we just don't know. And unfortunately, like I said, it's gone now. So
Did you try to debunk? I mean, a bite mark is a bite mark. You can't. There couldn't be any other explanation.
There was nothing that would have made that impression there. So that's not the kind of thing. I mean, that's, like I said, that's one that just kind of leaves me.
That's shocking.
Yeah, it's like, wow. I just I don't know what to say about that. I mean, there it is. It happened. And
have you ever had any other injuries, or was that the only one?
Yeah, I've had a few things. I had another. I had a situation where scratch marks manifested on my back. That was, it's not up anymore, but it was live streamed, and it was in another location in Indiana, and it was really cold. I had Under Armour on. I had a shirt. I had like several layers of clothing on, And we had some strange things going on in the location. We were doing a live stream, and I felt, I suddenly just said, my back is burning up. And I mean, everybody saw, I hadn't touched myself or anything else. And in front of the camera, I mean, pulled the back of my shirt up, and these 3 long scratches just kind of manifested right, across my back, and wasn't even in a way that I could really reach it myself to do that. So, but to see, something like that happening right there on camera, that was pretty bizarre. And
that's nuts.
Yeah. And, it's been a few things. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, certainly, and
do you
those
ever go
kind
to
of
those
things are more extreme.
Do you ever go to those large haunted places, like famous ones like Bobby Mackey's or Waverly? And if you what's your take on those?
I've done most of those. Yeah. A lot of the larger ones, a lot of them are haunted, but they certainly they build up a certain mythos, I think, over the years too.
Yeah.
So, some of those are more challenging in the sense that if you go in, you kind of have to sort out what is.
Hey everyone, it's Megan Trainor for Profile by Sanford. We're all working hard to balance our lives these days, and sometimes the toughest part is being the me I want to be. Profile's one-on-one coaching and customized nutrition plans will help you stay on track. Balancing a healthy lifestyle, losing weight, and understanding nutrition isn't easy, but Profile makes it simple. Now you can try 2 weeks of Profile for only $49. Find your plan at profileplan.com. That's profileplan.com.
The reasons to treat yourself to a frozen drink from McDonald's go on and on. No reason is also a perfectly good reason. It's more than a drink. It's a McDonald's drink. Enjoy our new frozen drinks today. Treat yourself to bold flavors like blue raspberry Fanta, wild cherry Fanta, and frozen Coke. At participating McDonald's, Coca-Cola and Fanta are registered trademarks of the Coca-Cola Company.
What's the real story? What's myth? What's been creatively added? Sometimes the real story is even better than what's really being told, and sometimes the popular tales are way off from the reality. One of my favorites in those terms is the Myrtles plantation.
How so? I mean, we all know the story of the slave poisoning the family, and of course that's how they died. I think it was Olander leaves or what have you. Killing the family is that's not the truth. That's not how it went down.
Well, there you go. That's a perfect that's a perfect segue into the reality of the Myrtles. So the story is, and there are a lot of ghosts that purportedly haunt the Myrtles. The Myrtles, it's a plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana. Beautiful location. The popular story is that a slave named Chloe was working in the home and purportedly had been the mistress of the plantation owner, and that she was caught eavesdropping, and because of that, one of her ears was cut off. So she was, from that time on, she wore a turban to hide the disfigured ear. And she became concerned that she was going to be sent out to work in the fields or whatever. So she devised a plan, and the plan was that she was going to make the children sick and then nurse them back to health, and that she used too much oleander and caused the children to die, not just to be sick. And the result was that the other slaves had known what she did, so they essentially chased her down and hung her. So we have the legend of Chloe, and we have this phenomenal photograph that has never been debunked that is a picture of the back of the Myrtles plantation and a ghostly figure standing in slave dress and wearing a turban and really fitting the description of Chloe.
I'm familiar with that picture. It's got a tree in it. It's kind of a
it's a very intriguing image. Like I said, it's never been debunked. But here's the bombshell I'll drop on you. Chloe never existed.
Say what? Really?
So when you dig into historical accounts, you will find that there's no record of Chloe. Of course, there aren't records of a lot of the slaves, so we kind of say, okay, well, maybe not. But the plantation owner had a sterling reputation. He was very devoted to his wife. He never took mistresses. His children didn't die of poisoning. They died during a yellow fever epidemic, and their death certificates reflect this, along with doctor's records and so forth that talk about the yellow fever that was spreading in the area at the time. So now we have this mythical tale that's been created somewhere along the way, and we're stuck wondering who exactly the spirit is that manifests.
David, back up though. They've been all over the TV with this story. The caretaker's been on there recounting the same tale we've all heard, and you're turning around and you're saying, nope, never happened.
Right.
History
says it doesn't. However, and I'll bend your mind a little bit more, because I'm not saying that Chloe doesn't exist. I think Chloe may be an example of a tulpa. And that is a co-created entity. Created from human consciousness. Now, I want you to think about something. As you just stated, that story has been told over and over again. It's been on dozens of television programs. You hear this, you can go online and find that it's been in books. It's everywhere, right? How many thousands of people go to the Myrtles plantation on a regular basis, hoping to catch a glimpse of Chloe?
That's why you go.
Evidence of Chloe. Right. So where does all that energy go? What happens to all that belief? If all of these people believe in the existence of Chloe, does that make her exist?
I get what you're saying, that the power given, right, would have created a thought form or a tulpa.
Yeah.
That would be haunting the location because the pure creation of the story.
Yeah. Now, the rabbit hole goes in a lot of directions, quite honestly, because we could say, okay, well, on a basic level, we could say, all right, maybe there was a Chloe that's just not in the historical record anywhere. Maybe the parts of the story are wrong. Maybe there is something, and maybe that's why we have this amazing photograph and other evidence of Chloe. Or maybe it's another spirit that was lingering at the plantation and it's just taken the form of Chloe in people's minds and in how people interact. Or, as I said, maybe this is something that is still being co-created into existence because we have so much focus. So many people believe in Chloe. I mean, I said Myrtles, the first thing you thought of was Chloe. You gave energy to the idea of Chloe existing. Oh, there she is. So, she's a spirit at the Myrtles plantation.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. And that's even more fascinating than a ghost in a lot of ways, that we have that ability to create a ghost. I mean, the Philip experiment, that also proved that too, that we do have that ability to do that.
Absolutely. And this is another degree of that. And I think that, we have to look at the idea now that human consciousness is being amplified to a degree, human energy, excuse me, is being amplified to a degree because of the internet. Because, whereas, 50 years ago, if you talked about Chloe, it would just be people that you knew personally, that you told, that you talked to about it. But now Chloe's story can be read online from here to Taiwan to Australia to South America. So, we have these ideas that in a heartbeat can go global. And that takes the interaction of human energy and consciousness to a whole new level when we're talking about manifesting something like this.
It's like working like a supercharger.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. That does make a lot of sense, because it wouldn't be the first time it's happened where we've manifested our own ghost, for lack of a better term.
Right. Yeah.
That is nuts. Talk about the power of our own minds.
It is. And, you couldn't get a better setting in a lot of ways, because the Myrtles, of course, has a very rich history. And, it is a very active location. I've been to the Myrtles quite a few times and always walk away with some kind of strange experience. And
Sure.
Something happens there, whether it's just some crazy EVPs or some other experience. There are certainly things that occur there.
Wow, that's a mind bender, right, Doug?
Yeah. As much as I know about ghosts, I don't know that much. I'm not the ghost.
Here's one that even you know about, Doug. The Bell Witch.
Oh, I know. Swear to
You've
God.
heard of the Bell Witch.
Never heard of it.
Well, that's a really old. That's one of the first ghost stories, if you really want to go back.
No. So, I've got to ask him a question.
Sure.
Because I meant to ask him last time. We covered a lot of cool ground last time. Have you ever investigated a case where, like, a home was being terrorized by, whether it was, they thought it was Bigfoot or God knows what, getting rocked and rocks thrown at their house, and just having the pets freak out and that type of thing? David, have you ever gotten a chance to investigate a situation like that?
Yeah, I've been. I've definitely been in locations, in private homes that have had a lot of strange manifestations, and that's always a mixed bag, especially in modern times, because as investigators now, sadly, we have to be very cautious when people contact us and say, "Oh, all these things are going on," because there are a lot of people out there who, they're hoping to be on television. They're hoping to, be the next famous haunted house on, whatever paranormal show.
Yeah.
So oddly, now you get a lot of these cases where you hear these things, and it's either outright fabrication or it's great exaggeration. It's hard to say, but I've never been called on a case that is on the level of like what was supposedly going on in Amityville or something like that, if that's what you're asking. But I have had cases where people have had a lot of disturbances, where they've had, their kids are upset and things like that. And, sometimes those are situations where it seems to be genuine activity and the people need help. And sometimes a lot of it is psychological, or there are other things going on in the household. It's never as cut and dried as people think it is on television, because when they watch television, because any given case, you have to do some evaluation first off, and you have to talk to the people, and you have to make sure there's nothing shady going on with their motives. You have to make sure there's nothing psychological or something else going on in the household. And like I said, just a lot of factors to consider.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a really good point, because I just found out, this year, what some of these houses charge, these haunted houses.
Yeah.
To bring a group through.
Yeah.
It's huge
kind of
business.
money involved. What's the most expensive one you guys know of? Like, if you want to bring a group of 10 people in.
Trans-Allegheny, I think, is the most expensive.
It's thousands, isn't it?
That's like it's like 2,000 or 3,000.
Yeah.
So thus I get that you'd have to have your guard up.
Yeah.
Well, the pay-per-play stuff really starts springing up, after Ghost Hunters is around, stuff like that. Like I remember the first time I went to Villisca, the Axe Murder House in Iowa, and it was, really for next to nothing. Now they're charging about $400 or $500 a night.
Yeah.
So I mean, they realize that there's a industry to be made here, and there's money to be made, and so they're doing it because the interest was there. The mass popularity of ghost hunting really took off.
Yeah.
And wherever you have a need, you always have someone to fill that need, that niche. Yeah. And I gladly fill that niche. And so that's a lot of it.
It's an industry I had no idea existed.
Yeah, it is truly its own industry.
Yeah.
There's paranormal tourism.
Some of them, I think that, I understand both sides of it to a degree, because some of these places, if you've got a historic location, if you're going to allow people to come in, then, you have to be concerned over, the upkeep and what kind of damage they might do, or, just the fact that they're in there, tromping around. A place like the Axe Murder House, what are you going to do with that, really? Who wants to live in it with this notorious location? I mean, with this notorious reputation. So, really, what would you do with the place? You've got to keep it up if you want it to, unless you want to tear it down, obviously. But so I kind of understand that. And then I certainly understand, there's another side, and that's, people just see dollar signs suddenly, and they go to extremes and charge ridiculous amounts of money for investigators to come in.
Sure.
And the other thing that a lot of them have started doing now is with the advent, in the last several years or whatever, with all the YouTube channels, internet television, and all that. So a lot of them now will charge one fee if a team wants to come in and investigate, but if a team wants to come in and film anything, it's, they charge twice the fee.
Yeah.
Because they think that people making, YouTube videos are raking in the bucks, I guess.
I gather. I have heard that. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it's not good. It's not bad. It just is what it is. And if they can make a buck, they will. And I have gone to several of these big, grandiose, pay a lot of money to get in there. I've used my radio channels to usually get in for free. Hey, we'll give you some media exposure. We'll do this. We'll do that. And for my own opinion, just my own opinion, the hype is unfounded a lot of times. I mean, sure, it's got a great story, and sure, it's cool to be there. It's very historic. But it just didn't really live up to that hype that they were trying to put out there.
Sure,
that's just my own opinion.
Yeah,
your mileage may vary.
So, what other interesting or things that have happened to you, David? You just have really maybe even changed the way you think. I mean, there's got to be. As many places as you've gone, and you've traveled all over the world, we want to hear some strange story. It's another one. There's got to be ones that are better even than the bite.
Well, I told you guys the Bigfoot story the last time, right? From the Dismal Swamp.
I don't know. God, isn't that terrible? I remember a lot about that. We talked a lot about black-eyed kids and
The Bigfoot encounter I had was in 1981 in the one in the Great Dismal Swamp, and it was pretty significant in a lot of ways because of the aftermath. But no, I mean, I'll tell you guys a story if you want to hear it. I honestly can't. I do so many shows on it, so I can't remember if I shared that one with you or not. I don't think you did. So okay, so I grew up in a rural area of North Carolina, and I spent a lot of time when I was young tromping through a place that's called the Great Dismal Swamp, and it is it's a massive swamp that is on the North Carolina-Virginia border. So some of it is in both states, and it's a very strange place. It's not like a Louisiana bayou. It's not that kind of swamp. It's a lot of it you can walk through. Parts of it are dry. It is very, very dense. Back in the day, there were a lot of moonshiners that would set their stills up back in the Great Dismal, and it goes all the way back. It has a reputation that goes all the way back to even before the American Revolution, because there were various stories about treasure being buried somewhere in the swamp. There's a phantom graveyard that people see and then it vanishes. A lot of strange stories associated with the Dismal Swamp. Now, bear in mind, this was 1981. I wasn't thinking about looking for Sasquatch in the Great Dismal Swamp. Back then, there were a few areas that were kind of hot spots for Bigfoot. Of course, the Pacific Northwest. There were some stories out of Ohio and areas like that. But I wasn't really thinking about, like I said, Bigfoot around there because I hadn't had anyone tell me stories right there in that area. But I had heard a lot of other legends about the swamp and would go in and seek those things out. And there was a story about an old witch's house that was in the swamp. And I had tried to find it on a few different occasions and hadn't been able to. And I had spoken to a gentleman who told me that, he pretty much knew where it was. He had stories about it, and he told me how to get to it. So I set off with two friends and trekked back into the swamp and actually found the witch's house this time, which was this old ramshackle cabin, essentially, and spent some time in there exploring it. Came back out, and we had been in a bit longer, and it was a bit further back in the swamp than I was really hoping it had been. And by the time we came out, I'm thinking, the sun's going to go down fast and we're going to be stuck in the swamp. And I was always pretty good at navigating through the place for whatever reason. In hindsight, I'll tell you, it was probably a lot of youth and stupidity because, it was full of water moccasins and rattlesnakes and all kinds of things that'll kill you. Oh, my
goodness.
So here we are, we're out of this witch's house, and I say, I told the other two guys, we really got to move in order to get out of here and, make it back out before dark. And I'm thinking to myself, we're not making it out before dark. I'm going to be trekking a lot of this in the dark. Now, it was in the fall. It was very fortunate because it was a full moon, and we're moving through the swamp. It's the sun's gone down. It's, dark except for the moonlight. And I had kind of navigated these trails and got to this point where the trail came out on this large sort of oval shaped opening. And I knew that we had to cross this opening at just the right angle to hit a game trail that was on the other side. And that game trail would take us pretty far back to where we needed to go. So I'm standing there at the edge of this oval clearing. The other two guys are beside me, and I'm looking around and kind of scanning, using the moonlight as best I can and thinking, trying to position exactly where this other game trail is. And I notice to the right, there's this pair of trees. And for whatever reason, I just kind of lost my focus on these two trees, and I'm thinking there's something really odd about this pair of trees. And I kind of bent down. I'm using the light to look at these things and trying to place what exactly it is. And then I realized that the tree on the right-hand side, it only goes up, about 7 feet or so, and then it stops. Now, that's not completely unusual because there are, of course, partial trees and stuff in the swamp. But I'm thinking this looks really weird. And as I'm staring at this 7 foot or so tall tree, it has a branch on the right hand side that's touching the tree next to it. At least I thought it was a branch. It wasn't, because what I thought was a branch was an arm that was touching the other tree, and it suddenly comes down. And this is a living thing, because I've realized it's not a singular trunk, it's 2 legs. The top of it kind of swivels, and it catches the moonlight and gives off this kind of reddish orange eye shine. And this is a creature. It makes kind of this huffing noise. And a lot of things happened at the same time, because one of the other things that happened as this was unfolding was that I suddenly realized that the swamp was silent. And that was probably the most chilling thing out of all of this, because, normally, I mean, there's bullfrogs, there's crickets, there's night birds, there's all kinds of activity. The swamp comes alive in a different way at night, and there's so much sound. And I suddenly realized it's completely silent. And that alone made the hair go up on the back of my neck. And I'm thinking something's not right. And then, of course, seeing this thing, that it is this massive bipedal something. It makes this huffing noise, and it's after a couple of seconds, it turns and it walks away. And I'm standing there thinking, oh my gosh, I knew what it was at that moment. A lot of things were rushing through my head. And, the other 2 guys were, they don't really say anything. I get us the rest of the way. I hit that game trail. I get us the rest of the way out, back to the vehicles. And as soon as we get to the vehicles, I say, look, I don't want to talk yet about what we just saw. I want you guys to go home, write down everything you can remember, and do a drawing, and let's get together first thing tomorrow and talk about this thing. The guys say, okay, we all go home. The next day, of course, I didn't sleep much that night. I'm making all these notes. I do this drawing, and my one buddy, bear in mind it's 1981, this is pre-cell phone or anything, right? So, I get a hold of my one buddy pretty early, and we compare notes, and they really match. And the third guy, we keep trying to call him, and we can't reach him. So we get really frustrated, and we're like, man, well, let's just drive up to his house. So we go to his house, we walk in, and he's sitting here watching television, and we're like, Mike, man, we've been calling you all morning, you won't answer the phone. And
yeah,
we just get, well, I'm busy or whatever. And I'm like, well, look, we want to talk about what happened last night. I don't know what you're talking about. And we're like, what do you mean? We're talking about what we saw in the swamp last night. Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't with you guys in the swamp. And this argument ensues between the 2 guys. And I'm kind of thinking, this is so strange. Mike's father comes in and says, what's all the shouting about? And, he tells his father, he says, these guys are trying to say I was off in the swamp with them last night. And he looks at him and he says, son, you were. And he cussed at his father and stormed out of the room. So the thing is that, this caused so many, this caused me to go down so many different routes, considering the effect of the experience on the witness and the reactions that people have. Mike, he's passed away now, but to his dying day, he never could recall or accept, or admit, I don't know which it was, that he had been in the swamp that night and seen that creature. And, he just, I truly believe, what I honestly believe is that it was something that was so far outside of his acceptable, worldview that he just couldn't accept that it had happened. So he blocked it out of his consciousness. And never could, like I said, never could admit to it or talk about it.
Gosh, that's nuts. Yeah, it was so traumatic maybe that he just, he repressed it, and he did not want to, he didn't have that ability to go back there and talk about it.
So, I mean, the experience, it caused so many, it was so influential in a lot of ways because it caused me to really try to understand and look at the psychological aspects of what a witness goes through. People who don't normally think about strange phenomena or believe that it can exist or can accept it. And, from another perspective, it was one of those things for me that it was like, good gosh, here this thing is back in the swamp. Why didn't I ever think about these things being in this location? And, where are the other stories? And of course, I ended up, spending a lot of time and really digging into local legends about creatures back there in the swamp, and did indeed find that, well, yeah, there's a lot of stories. It's just that, they were hard to get to because you had to talk to the right people who were willing to talk about it. And, you had to kind of get in their good graces. I had to drink a lot of very bad moonshine to have some of these conversations, with these guys who ran stills back there. And, but you eventually I was able to start hearing these stories that, you've got guys telling me, I ran a still back there. My daddy ran a still back there for 50 years. And, we got these swamp burgers that come in there and they steal the corn, they tear the still up, and, we shoot at them. I mean, I heard so many of these different types of accounts. And, it's just, it's that kind of stuff. You're never going to see a lot of those stories on the internet. Those guys aren't going on television to talk about what their family story is, but those things are they're back there in the Dismal Swamp. It's still an intense, wild place.
That's a great story. And David, thank you for sharing that story with us. And I just glanced down, man, we are so out of time.
Yeah.
It flew so fast. It went by so quickly. So, David, why don't you tell the audience where they can get your books and your websites and stuff like that?
Yeah, the website is eerielights.com. That is EERIELIGHTS.com. You'll find links for all the books on there, announcements of events, upcoming projects, other things I'm involved with. And, of course, all the books are available at Amazon.com also. There's also an Eerie Lights Facebook page and an Instagram feed, so check those out. But EerieLights.com, that's kind of the central portal for everything. There's also a contact page on there. If you have a story, if you have an experience or an account, please send it to me. I'd love to hear them, and it might turn up in a book.
Very, very cool. David Weatherly, everybody, the one and only. Remember, get his book. It's getting ready to drop. He's a great writer, great investigator, and really a great guest to have on the show. Again, David, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure, guys.
Till next time, guys, take care of each other, love each other. This is me and Doug. Joel, of course, if you didn't already know. We're signing off. We're getting out of here. Until next time, guys, take care of each other, love each other, and keep looking for the strange.
Hey everyone, it's Megan Trainor for Profile by Sanford. We're all working hard to balance our lives these days, and sometimes the toughest part is being the me I want to be. Profile's one-on-one coaching and customized nutrition plans will help you stay on track. Balancing a healthy lifestyle, losing weight, and understanding nutrition isn't easy, but Profile makes it simple. Now you can try 2 weeks of Profile for only $49. Find your plan at profileplan.com. That's profileplan.com.
The reasons to treat yourself to a frozen drink from McDonald's go on and on. No reason is also a perfectly good reason. It's more than a drink. It's a McDonald's drink.
Enjoy our new frozen drinks today. Treat yourself to bold flavors like blue raspberry Fanta, wild cherry Fanta, and frozen Coke. At participating McDonald's, Coca-Cola and Fanta are registered trademarks of the Coca-Cola Company.